Well, when I wonder about politicians and government, I turn for insight to my favorite magazine, Reason. Its editor-in-chief is Katherine Mangu-Ward. So, what's going on here?
I wish that Gary Johnson had had answers to those questions. I mean, anybody should be able to pull an Angela Merkel out of their pocket when the situation calls.
Why would he have said politicians you admire? Why would he admire Merkel necessarily?
But I think in that case, it was a little unfair. Now, he set himself up, right? If he hadn't had the first Aleppo moment, he probably wouldn't have been called out for the second. At the same time, I think he's so rarely given an opportunity to explain his broader foreign policy platform, which is something I'd like to see more often.
And in fairness, this Aleppo moment, it wasn't like they were talking about Syria and Barnacle asked about Aleppo. They were talking about something else, and suddenly he said, what would you do about Aleppo? I would have said, about what, a leopard? Or it's coming from nowhere. But he gets smeared.
You know, it's charitable of you to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think, you know, when we're looking for qualities of a president, one of the things we look for is thinking on his feet. Again, though, I think this notion that in this particular cycle, the Libertarian Party is the party that's lacking seriousness is one that I struggle to accept in the face of Donald Trump.
Right. What a smear. And Gary Johnson has done a lot of good stuff. I covered him years ago after he vetoed the excesses of his legislature.
I have vetoed the budget.
When Gary Johnson was governor of New Mexico, he kept saying no.
I vetoed half of the legislative product.
They must have hated you.
They did. They did.
A fellow Republican called him ignorant of the political process.
One of my veto messages was, I'm vetoing this piece of legislation because it's just way too long and we don't even understand what it says.
It's hard to stay popular with the political class when you veto 750 bills. And many of those bills sounded wonderful. Establish a pilot program allowing the state to reimburse grandparents who take care of children in welfare families.
Pilot program, I think, is the key word there.
Pilot program sounds good. We're going to test it before we fund it.
The agenda was really about growing government, about spending more money, and really not making a difference.
Come on, guys.
But always spending more.
I vetoed a dog and cat exercise bill. And this was a Republican bill, but for my signature, it would have been law in New Mexico that pet stores exercise their dogs and cats 2 hours a day, 3 times a week. I signed that piece of legislation. I have to then establish the dog and cat exercise police. Well-intentioned, but come on, where does government end and where does personal responsibility begin?
It's nice to hear that from a politician.
You know, I actually first encountered Gary Johnson when I was an intern for Reason magazine in the summer of 2000. I was set on the job of transcribing the world's longest interview with this governor no one had heard of. As it turns out, that was Gary Johnson, and my reaction to him at the time was the same that I think a lot of people are having now, which is, wow, this guy sounds like he's kind of principled and pretty unusual for a politician who actually got elected in a Democratic state.